All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sands of Time podcast. I'm sure at this point in time, you're like, man, I can't wait for more episodes. And that's why we are giving you more and more episodes so you can really enjoy yourself. I am Tariq Ibrahim. I'm here with the beloved Njia Manuruddin, and we have so many things to say. In fact, before the show actually started, we were contemplating, what do we actually talk about today? Like, are we doing this? Are we doing that? Are we doing this? And Virginia prepared two really, really special topics for you guys today. And I know a lot of you guys are like, well, how good could it be? Mujib, why don't you give a little sprinkling of what you think you got for them today?
Yeah, well, I think the audience always likes controversy. So we got some feedback last time that the Umayyad dynasty piece that we talked about, where we touched upon the Fitna a little bit, and Abdullah ibn Zubayr and Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, people wanted to know more about that.
I want to know
us
more about
unpack. They wanted us to kind of dig into the details. And some of the conversations we had were people saying, well, hang on a second. Was Hajjāj really the monster that you seem to be making him out to being? And by extension, if Hajjāj isn't that bad, then maybe the Umayyads aren't as bad. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying all the Umayyads are evil or negative. This entire podcast series is about presenting a real but deferential view of Islamic history. We're trying to humanize heroes. We're trying to humanize our history to the point where we can actually extract some sort of didactic value, where we can actually learn from it, not put it on a shelf and read it as though we're looking at a bunch of people that are operating on a superhuman level. This is about taking relatable characters like they were humans, off the shelf, unpacking them, learning from their lessons, calling out wrong where they do wrong, and giving them their flowers when they do right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the Umayyads, Amir Muawiyah was a Sahabi. So I'm not here to curse him in any way, but there's a lot of literature, including that picked up by the ulama, that presents a lot of nuance when it comes to Amir Muawiyah. So we're just here presenting that. But overall, he was a Sahaba Ikram, min Sahaba Ikram. Now, Yazid, his son, is not. So we can go to town on him. And then, as I say, we owe him nothing. Hajjāj is like that. He's not a Sahabi. He's not obviously a prophet of God. We don't really owe him anything but an honest, real take on what he did and the impact that he had.
And I think that's why this show, if you haven't caught on to it yet, that's what makes this show so wild, is because those people that you used to think they're infallible,
infallible, impervious to mistakes.
That's right. So historically speaking, most people would always, especially from coming from a Muslim perspective, that all these leaders were infallible. They have made maybe some mistakes, but these guys, al-Rasi, that's right. And what's happening now, because they are human, and we are in a state where we need to know our history, and we need to be able to look at the history in a way that we say, I want to be like him. I want to do this. I want to do that. We need to make it a level playing field. So when you talk to kids and you talk to yourself, you could actually say, this guy was good because 1, 2, 3. This guy was good because of 1, 2, 3. This guy was a disaster, period. But at least now you know. And by knowing, you automatically can grow.
Exactly. And to pick up on that, what if I told you in grade school that every single person in the school was going to get an award?
That's it. Yeah.
If you're the Dean's Honor List person, you're like, what the heck? This dilutes everything that I'm doing. There's nothing special about what I'm doing.
My kids were in a soccer league and they won. The other team lost. I asked the coach, what was the score? They said, oh, we don't keep score. Everyone's a winner. And I just yanked them out. I'm like, no, there's no such thing as everyone's a winner. There's a winner. There's a loser.
I mean, look, there's an age for that, and I'm sure there's good science behind why they're doing it up for a certain age. But the point we're making here is this. There are prophets of God that operate on the extremely highest level known to humankind. Their character, integrity, their, in fact, divinely inspired behavior is something that we're to attempt to emulate, but we never can because we don't have that connection with God. And then you've got as-Siddiqeen, wa-Shuhada'i wa-Ṣāliḥīn. There's a hierarchy, the righteous, the truthful, the righteous, the martyrs, and I'm actually butchering the order that comes in the Qur'an, but my point is there's a hierarchy. When you put everybody on this lionized elite status, it dilutes the great figures that we actually had. If every person in our history was a prophet, you're diluting the prophets. If every person who ruled the Mamluks, or every Fatimid, or every single last emperor of the Abbasis was as great as the Khulafa al-Rashidun, we're doing a real disservice to those absolute legends that we had the privilege of having for the first four rulers in the first 30 years of our history.
And not only that, but then it makes it completely unattainable for anyone else. Well, these guys are God-given superheroes, technically speaking. God can't choose me. I can't live off that. I can't even try and be like them. What's the point?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with that being said, let's jump into this.
Sure.
You can ask the questions, because I know you've had some family conversations where
a lot of conversations
around.
I walked into a building.
I don't outside knowledge Hajjāj, but by all means, why don't you get it started? What do you want to talk about when it comes to Hajjāj?
Well, from my humble upbringing as a little guy in a big world trying to understand history, Hajjāj is labeled as, in most scenarios, that he killed so many people, therefore he was a real bad guy.
Yeah.
And there's this, what I feel is there's this unfair, or let's call it, and this isn't my personal belief, this is what I'm hearing, that it's an unfair evaluation of him, because if he wasn't as tough as he was for the time that he was in, the potential of the quote-unquote Muslim ummah, if you will, would fall apart. That the ummah would just die or would be in chaos, because there was so much rebellion, so much conflict, that you needed what they call what is it called? An iron fist rule to just get people all lined up. Similarly to now, and we're going to jump really into the present, that they say, you know what, the era of Saddam Hussein, although it was tough, it kept things in line. Stability.
Yeah.
So the drawing, as wild as that is.
And ask people the opposite question.
Yeah.
Why is there naturally instability under Saddam or under a Hajjāj?
Yeah.
It's because they don't have true legitimacy to rule. Right. I'm going to direct this right at the Umayyads. The way the Umayyads took power, Amir Muawiyah is a Sahabi, radiyallahu ta'ala anh. He belongs to God, and God will account with him. But when Amir Muawiyah first struck the deal with Ahl al-Bayt, with Imam Hassan, to become the Khalif, he took power by way of agreement. So when you look at it from a legal, juristic, theological perspective, his legitimacy to rule is that he is striking an agreement with the rightful Khalif to take power. So in some ways, he's striking a licensing deal, right? It's not actually his to give away.
Right.
So when and there are different riwayah on what that contract stipulated. What we know for sure, on a high degree of probability, is that Imam Hassan demanded that at the end of his rule, he'd not appoint a successor. And some people go further and say it's to come back to the Ahl al-Bayt. Wallahu alam. We'll never know. We don't have manuscripts of that deal. What we do know is he breached the agreement by appointing Yazid.
Now that
in some ways, I can't sell to you what I don't own. If I'm leasing a vehicle or renting a property and I sell it to you, and then you start getting into a fight with the owner and other people, and you get an iron-fisted guy to go punch them in the face, you can be like, well, without that guy punching him in the face, like I wouldn't have stability in the property. Well, it doesn't actually belong to you because I didn't have the right to give it to you.
That's right.
It creates that knock-on effect.
Great analogy, to be quite honest. I like that. That's a very good analogy. But let me ask you this, because I had this conversation with a bunch of people, because everything we discuss to get ready for the show, I kind of tested on some audiences just to see the feedback. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then some people said, well, when Muawiyah made that deal, right, that was a certain time, and then he saw that his son had some potentials. This is the rumor. He saw that his son had some potentials, and it's not like he told Yazid that, on his deathbed. It's like there was like a good 10, 15 years of him preparing for him to rule. I'm just throwing it out there, like, well, he was preparing him, in his best of efforts. He said, maybe he'll actually be good. And therefore he should get it.
So you know what? When I go home tonight, I'm going to groom every one of my kids to be the next partners at Palette Velo. That doesn't mean they're going to get the job, nor do they deserve that job.
Right.
That has nothing to do with anything. And in fact, Amir Muawiyah tried striking a counsel with Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala an, Ibn Zubair radiyallahu ta'ala an, and Imam Hussein.
Yeah.
And every single one of them was like, yeah, no, he's not the guy. He's not our guy.
Yeah. Right. No,
Reportedly was upset with them. He's like, listen, okay, fine. I respect you guys. You're Sahabas. I respect you. I am the Khalif. All I ask is that you don't tell anybody else. You don't voice your displeasure with Yazid. I don't want you guys ever talking about it. Right? And then he told Yazid, you need to get these people's bay'ah, but don't force the issue. So Amir Muawiyah,
he did his part.
A Sahabi, he did his part. He's fully exculpated. He didn't beget or ask for any of this violence that his and this sacrilege that his son brought upon the Ummah. So it's not on Amir Muawiyah. The mistake he made was appointing that moron in the first place. So I guess you can say he has to wear that. But you can't saddle him with the violence because he gave him clear instructions not to force the issue.
Yeah.
But that is the Umayyad dynasty. That is the foundation.
That's the first
3 or 4 kings were Sufyanid kings of that line. And then it goes even worse because when Yazid's son, who's also incidentally named Muawiyah, takes the throne, he wants nothing to do with his father's throne. He goes, I want nothing to do with my father's pulpit. I'm abdicating. And he actually dies within a few months, and that puts the entire Umayyad dynasty into disarray. They don't even know who the successor is because the line is ended. That's where the Umayyads have a convention, and this is happening against the backdrop of Abdullah ibn Zubayr's Khilafah in the Hijaz.
Oh.
So one thing that kind of annoyed me to no end was I was on Instagram the other day, and I see a video depicting Abdullah bin Zubayr and how he died in the Haram, and this is all relative to Hajjāj. He dies in the Haram, being killed by Hajjaj's men. Bibi Asma is called in, and Hajjaj is taunting her, saying, do you know who this is? Meanwhile, Ibn Zubayr's body is hanging from Al-Marwa mountain. Can you imagine that?
Oh, wow.
Like in the Haram Sharif.
Blood everywhere.
Yes.
Wow.
His body is hanging.
Wow.
His carcass. Ibn Zubayr, a Sahabi. Think about that picture right off the bat. This is Hajjāj. This is your hero, Hajjāj, right?
Yeah, this is my hero. Right?
So they're depicting this, and I can't believe the number of people that were like, well, he was the wrongful guy. There's a hadith where Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, if there are 2 khalifs, you kill the second. And I go, okay, no, fine, that's a hadith. But who died to make the first guy the khalif? Just because I'm calling myself a khalif doesn't make me the legitimate ruler. If I'm the false pretender of the khilafah, that doesn't mean the second guy has to be killed. That makes no sense whatsoever from a theological perspective.
But from a
and
political
back to the Umayyad chain of custody that I talked about. They didn't have the legal pretext to actually rule. They just had the machinery and the apparatus and the arms and the soft and the strong power to pull it off.
And that's why people always felt the need to rebel. It's like no one believed in it. So the people were just so fed up with it. They're like, this can't be the way it is. Nothing here gives you the right to lead over us. We're not going for it.
Exactly. And when they don't go for it, and when we say we're talking with Sahabas.
Yeah.
We're talking about Imam Hussein, the Great. May God always be pleased with him. We're talking about Abdullah ibn Umar, ibn Zubayr, radiallahu anhuma.
All of them,
These are not average people that are saying, like Imam Hussein has an epic one line. If I have the Arabic correct, he says something like, Mithli la yubaya ka mithlo. He's like, the likes of me don't pledge allegiance to the less of him.
I'm not getting down with you, bro.
He's like, that's not my scene.
Sure.
Imam Hussein. And he says that openly in the Hijaz, in the Haram. So this is what's happening. Nobody's happy. And when I say nobody, these are the salaf al-ṣāliḥ that are not happy. Where there's smoke, there's fire. The reason this is happening is that the Umayyads don't have the legitimacy to rule. And they realize soft power and legitimacy is never going to win it because these people are looking for a dynasty of piety like the Khulafa Rashidun.
And we can't be that.
We can't be that. We can't be that dynasty. We need to rule based on an aura of, we are the Sadatul Quraysh. We are the people of Abu Sufyan. We are the people of Walid ibn al-Mughira. We are those people.
We're the
princes of the Quraysh.
Mm-hmm.
So Hajjāj has to be the one that drops the hammer and enforces that mantra. That's the problem.
That's what it is. That's how it shows up.
So that's why he has to be so repressive. So don't take my word for it. Let's go with the simple facts. I'll point out a couple of facts, and then I've got a Lindy here of a bunch of quotes. Oh, what other amazing people said about Hajjāj.
Oh, so you have quotes of what people said?
Yeah. So you don't during the time. You don't have to take my word for it.
Oh, okay. This is great.
So right off the bat, we talked about Hajjāj killed Abdullah ibn Zubayr, a Sahabi, in the Haram. So from an Aqidah standpoint, the ulama believe from a fiqh standpoint that the Haramain are sanctuaries to the extent that even a criminal cannot be apprehended in them. I'm sure there's some sort of runoff at some point where, okay, if you've got a mufsid in the Haram, at some point the authorities have to be able to get him.
Yeah, but this is sacred ground.
But this is not something where you go in there and you start attacking and having a battle in the Haram.
Wild.
Not only does Hajjāj encircle Meccatul Mukarramah, this is not some tertiary, like, oh, Damascus is kind of holy. We're talking Mecca al-Mukarramah.
Yeah.
He surrounds it. He catapults the Kaaba. The Kaaba is destroyed. There's no dispute. He destroyed the Kaaba. Hajjāj.
Wow.
Our hero Hajjāj destroys the Kaaba. He kills Abdullah bin Zubayr. He hangs him, by some reports, first in the Kaaba or in the Haram area, but he ends up in Al-Marwa. And then he taunts Bibi Asma. Do you know who this is? And Bibi Asma, what she says is legendary. She says, you destroyed his dunya, but he destroyed your akhirah. Right? And Hajjāj goes on this entire arc of this reign of terror for the next 20 years, but then he finally meets his end in Sa'id bin Jubayr, who was a Tabi'i legend that supported some of the revolutions, including the Ibn Zubayr revolt. So Hajjāj finally catches him around 712 AD, and they have this amazing exchange. So he goes to Sa'id when he has his people drag him in. He goes, Ma asmak. Ana Sa'id bin Jubayr. And he makes a play on his name. He goes, La, bal anta, I think it was Ibn Qusayr. He says something like, you're the broken one, Jubur ibn Qusayr. I can't, don't quote. In one of our other podcasts, I did have the
You did,
correct.
That's right.
Right.
Previously.
Yep. And then
Check that episode. Check that episode.
Ibn Jubayr comes back. He goes, Bal kanat ummi a'lam bi ismi. He's like, I think my mom knows my name better than you, bro. When he said, he's just having this banter with this ultimate tyrant that nobody is even comfortable saying things in front of.
Yeah.
He's just going at it with him. And finally, at the end, Hajjāj tries to get him to repent, or it's like that scene from Braveheart. They're just trying to get the guy to repent and say, kiss the emblem or say that we're okay, we're legitimate. Ibn Jubayr is like, no, ain't gonna happen. So finally he goes to kill him, and Ibn Jubayr is reading Qur'an. May God be pleased with him. But he gives this epic dua where he goes, Allahumma la tusallatu ala ahadim ba'di. Never give this man authority over anybody after me. Within 2 weeks, Hajjāj is dead.
Oh, wow.
So it comes full circle. Ibn Jubayr backed the Zubayri revolt. Hajjāj put out that revolt. Sa'id bin Jubayr was kind of at large, teaching people in the background for about 20 years. He finally catches him, and then he kills him, Hajjāj does. But that dua, and the dua of Bibi Asma way back in the day, and Ibn Zubayr,
they come together.
Finally comes, because Hajjāj had a role to play. Hajjāj had a role to play. He did put out some revolts. He did, I will give him credit, he was instrumental in the diacritic marks in the Qur'an being enforced, because people in Iraq and them, they weren't going to accept a mushaf that didn't look like it did at the time of the Prophet or the Khulafa.
Oh, I see.
If you are a Sahabi or a Tabi'i and you've always been reading a mushaf and you're a purist and your mushaf doesn't have any fathas and dhammas and kasra.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You're like, who are you? Who are you, Abdul Malik, to
put it easier,
to change the Qur'an?
Yeah, right.
And
so he enforced it. He's the one that made it. This is the way to do it.
He brought stability. A lot of people say he proliferated the mushafs throughout the ummah. He was known to promote Qur'an of the Qur'an and creating this culture of people reciting in the masajid. There's this really cool story where a kid is walking down the street and he's reciting a surah, he's reciting the Qur'an, and he sees Hajjāj and he says, يَخْرُجُونَ مِن دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. Hajjāj is like, what? He's like, you're changing the Qur'an, right? He goes, no, I'm not reciting the Qur'an. I'm just stating the fact that under you, people are leaving.
Oh, wow.
They're leaving the religion in droves. He was making a play on Surah al-Fath.
Yeah, right.
Where
Oh, my
God
God.
has the opposite. They're entering in droves into the deen of God. So you had a lot of people at the time that were not happy with Hajjāj. And I mentioned in the other podcast, Hajjāj is the consummate bully, the consummate tyrant, and he is, first of all, from Taif. So he's got that
Rough.
thick about
It's tough.
al-Thaqafī.
Yeah, right.
The moment Abdul Malik appoints him to be the governor of Iraq, his first khutbah, he goes up there, and the Arabic is legendary. He goes up there, he goes, for about, let's say 15 minutes, for a long, awkward time, he's just looking at everybody. He's not saying a single thing. Everybody's just stunned, looking at him back, and he goes, finally, Inni ara ru'usan qad aynat wa hana qatafuha wa ana la sahibuha. He goes, I see a lot of heads of vegetation and fruit that are ready for harvest, and I'm the owner of the harvest.
So taunting. So taunting.
That's
That's his move.
his first ascension to the pulpit. He's talking trash and intimidating. That's who he is. So that's a fact. That's what he does to Zubayr. That's a fact. Ibn Zubayr, he kills him, hangs him inside the haram. When Abdullah ibn Umar, ibn al-Khattab, the great Sahabi, has a policy of neutrality, Hajjaj's men come to him in the Haram Sharif. Again, there's a pattern of nothing being sacred. They want Ibn Umar to pledge allegiance to Abdul Malik. Ibn Umar is like, I made that mistake with Yazid, which he did because he knew a hadith where Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, a person who dies without a bay'ah to somebody dies the death of ignorance. And so he was always traumatized by that. But then he learned from pledging to Yazid that it was just an absolute mistake. As if he never, ever again wanted to give bay'ah to anybody, certainly not an Umayyad. And he became more and more disenchanted with the Umayyads because he's seeing how this is unfolding. He's seeing what's happening to Bibi Asma. He's seeing what's happening, well, even before that, to Imam Ali. He's seeing what's happening to Ibn Zubayr. He's seeing them desecrating the haram, right? And if you recall, in one of our episodes, we talked about Imam Hussein, mashallah, in his prescience, being able to foresee that these people had no reverence, and to the extent that he was in the haram, they would still come and kill him in the haram. So they've left Hajj on Yawm al-Tarwiyah because he didn't want the haram to be desecrated, because he knew that they were going to kill him. He's like, if they're going to kill me, I don't want my blood to desanctify the haram.
Wow.
Right. So the Sahabis, the salaf al-ṣāliḥ, I've always known this about the Umayyads, that they were very irreverent, that they're just a bunch of ignorant Jahiliyyah Qurayshis. That's what they are.
And they maintain that.
Hajjāj is...
He's the definition.
He is the arm of that regime.
Wow.
So Hajjāj sends his men to beat Abdullah ibn Umar to the point where he's badly injured in the haram.
Just to get bay'ah. That's the idea.
Yeah, he does get bay'ah.
To get it.
And whether it's the same instance or another event, likely another event, somebody from Hajjaj's men brings a weapon into the haram and stabs Ibn Umar in the foot. And there are various reports of the exchange that follows, but what we know is Abdullah ibn Umar held it against Hajjāj. So we don't know whether Hajjāj gave the order, but we know that Abdullah ibn Umar held him responsible and felt that he gave the order. Right?
Oh, I see. So it necessarily wasn't him that did it, but he felt that this came from that.
Exactly. And what Abdullah ibn Umar was saying by many of the reports is, Hajjāj, you let your people defile the haram by bringing weapons into the haram. So you're responsible for what happened. So you can't wash your hands clean of your men coming and stabbing me in the foot with a weapon that shouldn't even be in the haram.
Yeah, right.
You're enabling this culture of sacrilege. So that's Abdullah ibn Umar. Obviously, he doesn't think very highly of Hajjāj.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Seems
and
like
Sa'id bin Jubair, same thing. And when he dies, Hajjāj, at the hands of that dua by Ibn Jubair, he is reported to have said, Sa'id bin Jubair, what have you done to me? He's uttering that as he's going more and more senile or insane in his final eyes. He's like, Sa'id, what did you do to me? What did you do to me? I'm losing my mind.
The guilt was eating him? Is that the idea?
Something was eating him,
Yeah,
but
sure.
he died connected to that dua.
Oh, really?
That dua
Stayed with
was
him.
dead within 2 weeks. That's
Oh,
Hajjāj,
wow.
right? So with that being said, let's go over some of the quotes. You don't even take it from me. Maybe I'm just the tainted. And like I said, I lived in Syria, so I visited all these American sites. I love the Umayyad Mosque. I love what the Umayyads did to spread the Ummah, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you they were Sahaba Ikram, other than the ones that actually were, like Amir Muawiyah. The rest of them were just Qurayshi kings and princes that were re-importing the Jahiliyyah after Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Rasidun had done away with it. That's what the Umayyads were. And that's why in that episode where we talk about the downfall of the Umayyads and lessons from the Abbasid revolt, that's why they didn't last very long, as we talked about then, is they just ticked off so many people monumentally. So let's take a look. So Ibn Umar, as we talked about, says, "Oh Allah, relieve the Ummah of him." Okay?
Wow.
Big one. Abdullah ibn Zubayr, not surprisingly, calls him the enemy of God.
Right. Like explicitly, he says that.
Adulullah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sa'id bin Jubair gives that dua that we talked about. La tusallatu ala ahadin ba'di. Here's my favorite one. The fifth Khalif, honorary Khalif that we spent an episode talking about, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, descendant of Ibn al-Khattab, the honorary fifth Khalif, who is the greatest of the Umayyads. What does he say about Hajjāj? And I really feel like I have to say it in Arabic for those of us that understand. I might mess up the tashkīl, but it's just too funny and too powerful not to not say it in Arabic and to go straight to the translation. He goes, لو جاءت كل أمة بخبيثها وجئنا بالحجاج لغلبناهم.
Oh, man.
So what he says is, he goes, if every single nation came with their most khabith, like their most vile, and we came with Hajjāj, we would destroy all of that. It's like, he was so about ibn Abdul Aziz. I know May is saying this about Hajjāj.
About his own.
Right, so this isn't Wajir, this isn't Tariq, this is from one of the Sadat al-Amawiyyun, their greatest son.
And they all lived with him, right? Like these are quote unquote his contemporaries.
Yeah, so that's right, yeah.
Right? Like they all saw him in one way or another.
He was ruled from 717 to 720. Hajjāj died in 712, so they would have been...
They interacted.
Been well acquainted, that's for sure.
Wow.
That's for sure, yeah. And then Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, rahimahullah, ما أعلم في أمة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم من هو أخبث من الحجاج. I don't know of a single person in the ummah of sallallahu alaihi wasallam who is more vile than Hajjāj. This is Imam Ahmad. This is not Mujir Muniruddin. Okay?
Imam Ahmad's, mashallah.
Rahimahullah.
Yeah, absolutely.
The list could go on forever. I got Imam Hassan al-Basri saying something similar. Imam Dhahabi. Imam Ahmad has another zinger. I don't even need to get into that. So my point here is I'm all for revisionism and saying the means are justified by the ends. Of Hajjāj ultimately stood for all is well and ends well. But I'm not willing to go against what the primary sources were saying about him when the primary sources are who some of these people were.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not going against these people. I take, as a Muslim, we take our aqidah and our fiqh and our hadith through these people. They're the salaf al-ṣāliḥ. Why would we differ from them on Hajjāj?
Sure. Yeah.
Simple.
That's the last thing we go for.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
So that's my take on Hajjāj. He was an instrument, ultimately, of God to do some good things. But as Muslims, of course, we believe that everything happens with either the permission or the divine ordinance of God.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we absolve evil people for doing evil things that lead to good. When every single one of us was killed by Godfrey's men in 1099, and that led to a revival in the Ummah, and we ultimately came back as stronger people, and we took Quds back in 1187, does that mean Godfrey was doing us a favor?
It's a great point. It's a great point.
Right? When, one of my favorite examples, again, because we all love Al-Aqsa, and I can talk about Jerusalem all day. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the Babylonians, when he destroyed the Haram, Al-Aqsa, the Temple of Solomon, as they call it in English, in 586, and burned the Torah, and as a result, we don't have any manuscripts of the Torah anymore. We don't have any vestige of what Nabi Sulaiman's beautiful masjid looked like because of this destruction. it led to a revival among Bani Israel, the Muslims of the time, the believers of the time, and the predecessors to the Jews. Such that, and this was foretold by Nabi Isaiah in the earlier scriptures. So this is all part of the plan. Within about 50 years, Cyrus comes back, Dhul Qarnayn, and he retakes Jerusalem. When I say retake, he conquers it as part of his Babylonian conquest. And he leads a rebuilding of the second masjid, or the second temple, right? And you could argue the second temple maybe in the second period led to more Anbiya, and all is well that ended well. But does that mean that what Nebuchadnezzar did was actually a good thing? Absolutely not. I'm never going to forgive him for destroying the masjid of Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. Right? So the ends do not justify the means. God has a plan for all evil or negative that happens in this world. It's either a tribulation here, or it's an opportunity to enhance your hereafter, your akhirah. That doesn't mean the actual agent is going to heaven because he did everyone a favor, right?
Yeah, so true. So true. No, and I think you make a great point that bad things happen and then good things happen afterwards. But the guy that did the bad things doesn't necessarily that makes him a hero now.
And that wasn't even his intention.
Yeah.
That wasn't Nebuchadnezzar. He's not thinking, oh, let me bring in the next golden era of the Israelites. He's not thinking that. He just wants to kill him. Hajjāj is not thinking that he's on some noble quest.
Yeah, he's just trying
to kill people and put out the rebellion, which it's not truly a rebellion. It's actually a righteous insurgence.
Yeah, and I think that's the part in history a lot of people have to get familiar with, because I think from what you read in, let's call it mainstream history, these are rebellions, right? These are labeled as rebellions because, technically speaking, there is a Khalifa at the time. That is the quote unquote
a king. There's a king.
There's a king right now, and people are against the king, which by definition would be a rebellion. But technically, the good guys are trying to throw over the people that shouldn't be in charge. It's a very unique moment in history. If I can be honest with you, it's like, well, what is it called?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what would you call it if not a rebellion? Would you call it like a...
Exactly.
Is it like the opposite of a crusade? You know what I mean? Like, what would it be?
Well, the comment I would make is Hajjaj's good and bad deeds are amplified by the formative period that he lived in. That era was so pivotal to Islamic civilization. Our aqidah was being crystallized. Our understanding of the Qur'an, tafsir, our books of ahadith were still being crystallized, our fiqh. So when you're in that very formative phase of Islam, you have an outsized impact with every deed, good or bad, that you do. So I suppose that's a mitigating factor on his negative things that he did. That, hey, it wasn't that he set out to do something so destructive and kill these amazing people. He was just trying to fight the rebellions of his time and his contemporaries. But history is a funny thing. You look back and you factor in things that maybe sometimes actors in their time weren't factoring in. So if we're going by a mens rea blameworthiness standard, how blameworthy was he? Maybe he's not the most evil person that has ever lived, right? Maybe he's just made to look worse in my eyes because of the period that he lived in and the people that he was killing. Yeah. But it certainly doesn't make him a hero. And to be honest, I still don't buy that. I still think
he wasn't the
people that he's killing. You just can't excuse that.
Yeah.
But I'm just giving him some excuses. Maybe there is that point of view, but ultimately it's not a positive.
Now, if Imam Ahmad was living in this time, and I know this isn't necessarily what the direction, but it happened. So here we are now. So during the time of Imam Ahmad, right, he was tortured quite a bit, right? And that was a time, and I know you know quite a bit on the subject, that there was that
the mihna, there was the mihna.
That's right. So in what point did the Hajjāj play in that discussion of where to go?
So in fairness to Hajjāj and the Umayyads, I'll give them credit here. The Umayyads aren't necessarily characterized in history as having antipathy with the ulama and the a'immah. They are fighting a lot of people that are shuyukh. They are fighting the Sa'id bin Jubair, or they are fighting the Imam Hussein's, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But they don't have a concentrated program of targeting ulama and trying to get them into their control. In fact, even Hajjāj, if you look at some of the reports, after his men stab Ibn Umar, he's actually visiting him in the mustashfa, and he's visiting them afterwards in the hospital clinic, saying, "Oh, Ibn Umar, what happened? Who hurt you?" Right? He's still paying reverence that these people are shuyukh, and we don't just easily dismiss them. It's not fully iconoclasmic.
Right.
The Abbasis are literally trying to round up the ulama and get them with the program. The mihna, which I want to spend an episode talking about how important and pivotal that was in the foundation of Islamic civilization. And the original A'immah, including and led by Imam Ahmad, standing on their heads to create the civilization. That you really have to lay at the feet of the Abbasis.
That's theirs, eh?
That's theirs. They have to own that.
No,
it started with Abu Ja'far al-Mansur persecuting Imam Abu Hanifa, trying to get him to be his grand vizier. You fast forward a couple of kings or khulafa to the son of Harun al-Rashid, al-Ma'mun, who then persecuted Imam Ahmad. All the A'immah were persecuted. The Abbasis for the first century, even their greatest caliphs came in the first century of their rule. They had a precipitous drop-off. All those guys had their hands dirty in persecuting.
Is that right?
Their imam. Yeah.
Oh, well, so even after the revolution, quote unquote, where,
well, I would say especially after the revolution.
Yeah, because, your imagination plays with you. You're like, okay, so, if I'm to be in this time frame, if I were to live in this moment, right? Yeah. I say, okay, we got rid of the Umayyads. Now Islam is back on its trajectory to be the best. And yet you still find these...
Yeah, I mean, the Abbasis did away with a lot of the things, the racism and the anti-pluralism that the Umayyads really stood for, being the chieftains of the Quraysh extended. They did away with a lot of that, but ultimately it comes down to who's in power. The Abbasi kings, al-Mansur, Abu Ja'far was probably their greatest, most formative son.
So famous.
His brother, Abu Abbas al-Saffah, the bloodletter. These guys were shrewd tacticians. They would use generals like Abu Muslim to lead them to victory after victory, overthrow the empire, and then slit their throats in private and just slowly consolidate. They were just experts at statecraft. So to them, they're just trying to consolidate power, and they know that Aqidah and Islam means everything to the populace. That is the narrative by which 8th century Muslim world operates and lives their life. So if we can wield in the arbiters of the Aqidah and the Sharia, and we can get them to be our mouthpieces,
we will.
How awesome of a monopoly is that?
Oh,
that's the mihna.
That's what it is, eh? Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
So that's all we got to say about Hajjāj. That's great. If people want to hear more, we can revisit later, but I think we've said a lot about Hajjāj.
No, absolutely. So I think it comes to a critical point. So this is, look, we're not giving you when he was born, when he died. We're not doing a biography here. What we're doing is giving you enough nuggets that you can go and read on your own and figure it out. But now you've heard perspective. You've been given a situation where now you understand the person and the situation. So whatever you knew before, now you have this giant perspective to work for. And I think that's the name of the game here. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's the name of the game. So we'll end it here on the Hajjāj. I think that's a good point to add. This is a nice quick episode, 30 odd minutes or so. And then next week, we have another episode for you. Also an incredible episode. Do you know what you have planned to talk to?
Oh, we got lots of things that we're recording. So
all right, we got a lot.
We'll post it. You're tuned.
All right, wonderful. Let's see. Take care, guys, and we'll talk to you again next week.